Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel where we review anything and everything. And today we're taking a look at, this is known as gaming paper. It is used for most commonly things like role-playing type of games, tabletop RPGs, aka Dungeons and Dragons, or things of that sort. If you guys are into that space, for anyone who is into that space, they would know about this clearly. But I'm just going to kind of do a little bit of a dive into what it's like using this, the material, how does it stack against other type of things, other type of items like say vinyl mats and things of that sort, and just the ways that you can use this and what are some of the pros and cons in regards to it. Link's going to be in the description down below for you guys to purchase this on Amazon. And yeah, so let's jump into it. So you could see right there, that is the branding. And this has been around for a long time. So first, what I want to just jump into is diving into what is it? So gaming paper is a thin type of paper. So if those who are familiar with vinyl mats, various types of gaming mats, or even the ones that are like almost like a cardboardish type of material, thin cardboard material that have a laminate on top, this is not that. And this is not in that realm of quality. It costs a lot cheaper, but at the same time too, what makes it good is that it has almost like a waxy coating on top, which makes it, erasable. If you're not using permanent marker, erasable markers, then this is something that you can clean off very easily, and it's not a problem. It's cheaper than you having one of those type of mats. So the truth is that I feel like with gaming paper, you really don't even have to erase. In theory, you could, but I don't even think it's worth it, because unless you have it on a nice, hard, solid surface where you can scrub and it's, not gonna crinkle up when you're rubbing it. Like say if you had it on a rug, you're not gonna be able to do this. But on a hard surface, you could, like scrub on it. But at the same time too, I think a lot of people kind of use gaming paper with the idea like you're not going to reuse it, because that's what you use the mats for. So if you're the type of person who wants to design something like maybe a town or either a town or like a kingdom or something of that sort, or castle, you could just write on this and it be a permanent thing. And you could do that on vinyl mats. Most of the time, a vinyl mat of this equivalent size, now this cutout right here, you can't see the limits of it, but this cutout right here is roughly about 45. So the what would I call this? I don't want to call it the height, but for lack of a better word, we're going to call it the height of it. The height of the paper, the short end of it, not the side that it rolls out this way. The short end of it is about 30. I want to say it's about 33 squares. It's like 33 squares. And obviously the width is however long the roll is. This particular sheet that I have, you're not seeing the full width of it, but it's roughly about 45 squares. And like I said, like the 33 squares going up. So if you were to have a equivalent size, let's say vinyl mat, one of the standard brands is Chessex. That's probably one of the oldest brands and the one people go to most often. I think they reduced the size of their mats now, not the size, but the quantity of different types of mats down to, for the most part, they have their Megamat, which is their standard really big size, and the Mondo mat, which is really big. And I only just learned about that one. And so the Megamat is roughly, I want to say something like 36 by 48 inches. So somewhere within the realm of what this cutout is here. Like I said, even though you can't see the full edges of it, somewhere within the rough range of this cutout. But that runs you about $45 to $50. So if you wanted to use that, obviously the quality is really nice, but if you want to use that for the purpose of a permanent location, that's cool. But then what starts happening is, say if you have multiple permanent locations, that becomes a thing where it starts costing you like $50 close to for every location. Whereas with gaming paper, it's a lot cheaper. I think $50, and you get about 200 feet worth of this in length. And obviously the width is going to be what it is, like I said before, about 33 inches. But with that much of it, you can make a bunch of permanent locations and just roll them up and pull them out when you want. Now, granted, it's not as durable as you would like, but sometimes something that people usually do sometime if they want to work around is if you got a nice hard surface like this, you could do this also on a very thin or fine carpet where it's not like a bunch of heavy bristles, but you could take a clear like plexiglass, a large clear plexiglass, and just put it on top of it. So that way, whatever you had drawn on it, you don't have, it lays it flat, automatically gets all the wrinkles out, so you don't have to worry about it re-rolling on itself or anything like that. It protects it also because everything is touching that layer, especially if you have a soft surface underneath this, because otherwise, putting miniatures, they might poke through it if you're on a soft surface. Where we're on a hard table, so this doesn't have a problem with if something hard is hitting it like a miniature, it's not gonna rip through it. But nonetheless, even still, having a plexiglass, that's an option if you want to have. But even if you don't, what's great about this is that it just gives you the option to set up a bunch of permanent scenarios, and it's not costing you as much. And I had a lot of cool ideas because I love just the idea of the designing, even if it's not to actually do anything with it. I love the idea of just the designing. And I had designed one like city that I done, and I'll probably show this on another video where I designed a city and it was really good. And this one I cut out this size shape because I was actually gonna make a castle, and I worked it out. And one thing, I'll dive more into it in a little bit, but I do feel that with these kind of things though, a lot of people sometimes, you have these people really good with their artistic skills. If you're not super good with artistic skills and you're just doing a downward view, you're not doing these kind of dimensional views, because sometimes people do almost like a 3-dimensional drawing, even though it's a 2-dimensional plane. You guys who are familiar with the space know what I'm talking about. But I do like the idea that when you have this much space, if you're the type of person from an artist perspective or even from a creator's perspective, and you want things to be very much like made for a one floor design, because the problem when you're using instead of 3D tiles or anything like that, you're just using a gaming mat, when it comes to floors, like you might have a castle that's like maybe just that big, not even that like huge. So obviously what I framed out was very small relative to the size of the castle, but something like maybe, I don't know, like 20, not even like 15 squares, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, like about 15 squares by 15 squares or something like that. And you might say, okay, like say if you only have that size of a location, you might say it's got multiple floors. So even though it's not a big footprint for a castle, you have a bunch of floors. But I think the problem sometimes when you're doing that and you're like playing any kind of game, you're playing with someone using like gaming mat, is that the idea to have to bring in another floor location. Now, sometimes what people do is the mat will be used to simulate a space, like a void. And what I mean by that is it will say like you got 10 inches of like a floor here. Maybe you have 10 inches of floor there, another 10 inches here, another 10 inches here, and here, and here, here. You have 6 of them, and they all represent the first floor, the second floor, the third floor, fourth floor, blah, blah. And what's in between them is just empty void space that you're not meant to occupy. It's just a way of putting all the floors on one mat, and you could do that. But I like the idea of building in the idea of one floor, because this is what you're working with. So a town where none of the buildings have 2 floors, a castle where the castle doesn't have 2 floors, or maybe the outer lining of the castle will have like the top towers, and that will be the rimming going around the entire castle, and everything in the inner part is ground level. So just a little thought I had, and I'll dive back more deeper into that in a moment. I just want to go off that little tangent as far as like I like the idea of designing like that. So in that case, you need a lot more space because you're designing one-dimensionally. You're not designing upwards, so you're going to need to design more outwards. But as far as, like I said, the pros and the cons with this, those are the pros. The cons is, like I mentioned before, the pros is that you can make permanent designs on this. You don't have to worry about erasing because you have so much of it, and just use these locations that you make up later on and just pretty much build a world to a degree. We have like multiple big sheets like this, like 4, 5, 6, 7 of them, and you're just building out a world. And every time you want to the game comes to that location, you got it ready and ready to go. But some of the cons is obviously the durability. That is the major con. So the benefit is the price. One of the big major cons is the durability. And this paper is definitely very flimsy. I honestly wouldn't even erase on this thing, because even though I know you can, I'm sure that the wear and tear of doing that too much might even start to wear on the paper. So I wouldn't even do that. Whereas a vinyl mat is a lot more durable. I would just make it like a one-time, you draw on it and just leave it at that and save it. So that way, you don't want to throw it away, because then obviously this paper's too expensive just to throw it away. But if you save it as a permanent design, then, you're getting your money's worth. And that's really the main negative when it comes to it, is just that durability. And I think for the most part, it's a little bit less, like the height is a little less than some of the other mats, than the vinyl mats, but not by much. So I wouldn't consider that a major negative. But definitely, going back to the building aspects of these things, I really like the fact that you can make it as long as you need to be. And that's where it really also shines, because if you need a lot of space to make it something where you can, really, build out something that's got to be a lot wider, you can do that. The only thing I would then also go back to the negative once again is that if you make this really wide, then now if it does get a little rip in it, your entire thing is no longer kind of operational to a degree. Whereas if you keep it in smaller portions, if something goes really bad with one of those portions of the mat, you could throw it away and then go, you know what, I just got to redo it. But it didn't screw up a larger, the whole mat because of that. So, but yes, stay tuned, because I will make another video in which I display one of the towns that I was working on. That I finished, actually. I'm sorry. I'm going to be working on this to make a castle, even though I really do not even play these things. I played in the past, but I really don't currently now. But I'm still always fascinated in all those kind of things. Just the designing of things, those kind of spaces of those type of games. I don't really get a chance to like play them or really dive into them like that, but I love the creativity of it. I love like fantasy realm stuff. I love all that kind of stuff. I'm a little bit into everything, as you could tell from this channel. So that is something where like I will dive into. But as far as the little tidbits on the castle, I just want to dive into that real quick. Don't mind. As far as if you guys as far as the quality of everything at the mat, I'm kind of done with that. So if you don't want to hear the rest of this, feel free to just tune out and check out the video. But I had a design that I wanted to do for a castle, and I created it in my mind because, and I wrote it up, and I wrote like a kind of rough draft on it on regular grid paper. And essentially, what I got excited about it with this, and this was after I made my little town setup, which the town setup has like maybe about something close to like somewhere between like 16 to 20 buildings in it. It's around the same size as the cutout I have right here, about 40 something, like 45 wide, and obviously the height is 33. And I set up the town to be, it has like a town hall, it has like a few other things, and it's really cool. All right, so I decided to just pull it out because it was just so much easier to pull out the town map. And unfortunately, though, I can tell you right now, you're not going to be able to see everything on it. So here you guys go. I try to adjust things a little bit that you guys can see the majority of it. And then I'll kind of scale over to show some of the other things. But you should be able to see the majority of it here. So, and I'm sorry for glare and whatnot. Now that I have you here and I have everything set up, I'm just going to extend this a little bit with just going over the few things that I have here. So what you can't see on the framing right here, and I'll speak on it a little bit afterwards, but just so you know the totality of the buildings. Over on my left-hand side, I've got a market. I've got a small little house. I've got the event hall, which you can see right here. It says event hall. I got a N right here, and that cuts off screen. I have a tavern over here to the right, the one you see here, and then everything else is in frame. That right there is the tip of a house. So you only got 1, 2, like about 2 buildings off to the left that are not in frame. Everything else, for the most part, is in frame. So when I decided to go with doing this whole house structure, this town structure here, because this is what I was excited about when I first got the gaming paper, was I didn't see maps that had like a huge town or city in one shot. They would have like a one structure, maybe almost like, a 20 by 20 inch or 24 by 24 inch of just one structure, one building. And I was like, that's cool, but it's not giving that sense of a scale of a town, because that's one building. And if you multiply that, you really are not going to get this sense of scale that, you're going to really want to have when it comes to that. So, I wanted to have this feel like it's a huge town. It's a town. It's like I don't want to say a city, but a nice sized town that you have, so many different things going on. And I'm a big fan of scale. And I realize when it comes to scale on maps like this, or even when it comes to scale on many other things, people who watch the channel know I've reviewed dinosaur figures. I love scale. I love with Lego and certain scale. So I love things like scale. And with this, what I realized is that when it comes to miniatures and this and that, sometimes, especially in fantasy realm, things don't have to be super huge to make sense, because you would imagine that during those times in the fantasy realm, it's okay for certain things to not be super big. So here, another thing you'll see, let me just zoom in and see if it pops up when I zoom in. If you can't see it, I'm sorry, I'll just whatever. But you see right here, okay, it pops up where I wrote down shop. So one thing I also like to using on gaming paper, which you can't use on the vinyl, I wouldn't imagine, is I was able to use a regular big pen, so your standard regular pen, to draw in the details, because it's a little easier to draw in the finer details like that. Like, you can see there the word shop, the shelf cases in the shop. And then right here's little tidbits of grass and little stuff like that. And when it comes to the framing, I did the permanent marker. Now, obviously, you could do everything in the permanent marker, which for the longevity of it is probably the better way to go. But starting off, I just felt like it was easier for me to kind of just do that for the smaller things. And in the long run, the regular pens might end up wearing out and coming off. So that's something to be mindful of. But, I haven't really used it for gaming, this whole mat, to be honest with you. I just love the design in doing this. But I have on my side, you can't see it, I have the marketplace, which is 3 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 inches by 3 inches. Or if I say just the number 8 by something, just know it's squares or inches. And decent size. The event hall is huge. I have no details in it, but the event hall is very big. It has slightly bit of an odd shape. You could see right there, slightly odd shape, but nonetheless, and there goes the market, but I have my light on it right now. But nonetheless, it's very big. This is the end that you can't, my camera was on top of that, so you couldn't see it, but that is the end. And you see how I did there? Those are the doors. You see I have it written in there in pencil, because obviously I don't need it written in there. It's just for the purpose of my own knowledge. But the truth is that I could erase that, because you would know anytime I put a little dot like that, it means a door. But here you can see the structure and what I went with here. And I really like it. The idea of just keeping it simple. You got these rooms. Rooms don't have to be big. So a room is only 10 feet by 10 feet, with the bed being the full 10 feet length. Now, really, beds aren't that long, but nonetheless, that's all you need if you're staying in an inn, is a room and a spot to sleep on the bed. You don't need anything else. So it takes a small space and maximizes it to give you a total of 7 rooms. And that is great. This is our tavern. And you can see that's the entrance coming in. You've got the little chair, stools, and the little seats, whatever. That's where the bar is. That's like a little storage room. This is your bathroom right there in the corner. And you see it's a nice setup, but it's pretty big. Just run over a couple of these other locations here. Right here, you have the house of worship, because just to throw it into the town. That's just another house. That one I didn't decide what was going to be with that one, but it's another blank just in case I wanted to use it for something. And that one as well could be customized for something else. There's another house. That is the bank right there. You have a guy who would be sitting there, a person, and this would be where the money is held. We've got the mayor's place. So the person who's in charge of the town, and they've got when you enter in at the bottom left entrance is where they enter in. They got a little side room. They got a study at the top right, and they got the main bedroom. So if it's like, a couple, you would think that the mayor would be married. So, he may have one kid. So, and like I said, the homes and the structures don't have to be something overly elaborate because the idea is this is like fantasy time. So you don't need to have the over the top. Here, I actually messed up because when I was drawing the line, I didn't realize I wasn't trying to go that far. So I messed up there. Sometimes that sucks, but this is the prison. So you enter in over here. You got one guy who's got a table and a little stool, and these are just representative of the bars for 2 large cells. You got another house over there. You got the blacksmith right there. Another house structure right here with a room. I try to always give the house structures like one room, or maybe like here you have a little cutoff that goes to the side, just a wall dividing, but it's not a separate room. So that way, if you have guests not inside the main room, you have a room to go into. This right here is a bigger one that has 2 rooms. So that's cool. And the same thing with a few of the other places. There's the town hall where you'll have the whole, I won't say events because that's what the event hall is for. But this will be like we have meetings and stuff like that. And let me just kind of reset back. So once again, you can see here, like I said, now that we ran through everything over here, just the scope of it, the total amount of building structures in it there's a total of 23 building structures here. So I think that it's really awesome in terms of just like the size and what you can get away with here. This legit feels like just a full town. It's not oversized for, like I said, the scope of what a town would be when you look at preset design mats. And that's another positive with this whole setup is that most preset mats that are already come, with like colors and details and this and that, they look really nice. Like the ones that have a castle design or have a whatever design, and they look really nice. I even bought one time before. I forget the name of the company, but it's like a fold out mat that's like a little town, and it doesn't show the inside of the buildings. Unfortunately, it's just the rooftops. And then like it has these tile cards that you buy separately as an add-on pack that you could put them on top of the building. And now it's supposed to be the inside of the building because the tile is like the inside of the building. So you slap it on top. Too much going on. I don't really need to see the roof of the buildings. I'd rather just a mat that shows the town and the inside of the buildings, but everybody's different. But nonetheless, nothing gave this scale of this. Like I said, there's 23 buildings here. You got a full town. You have all the elements that when I did the research about what would go into like a town typically, I had all those kind of things that make it function. So like I said, in fantasy world, you don't need all the things you have in modern times, but you have the mayor's location. You've got the bank. You've got the jail, obviously, and obviously a couple of regular residentials. So total residential 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 residential with 3 empty buildings that could be additional residential if I turned them into that. I just wasn't sure what I was going to turn them into at the time, but for just argument's sake, we're going to say 12 residential and all the essentials, a tavern, an inn. So if people come into the town, they go to the tavern. If they need a place to stay, they can say, you're going to go to the inn. Even an event hall, which maybe wouldn't have been needed, but I thought like if someone had like a big ball, the town was throwing some kind of event, or like you had like a scene in your game where you're trying to do like a masquerade ball and everyone's there at the party and they're dressed up, and maybe it's kind of a spy mission where someone's like, okay, I got to infiltrate and steal this from something from the mayor, but the mayor's going to be at the ball banquet type of thing at event hall. You have a space for that, and it's big enough that we could fit a lot of people in it. So a lot of things going on, and I just thought that was really cool, and just the concept of like a full town in one sheet. So that is what I feel one of the big pros is of gaming paper, is you can do all that. And now the size of, like I said, a large vinyl mat could accommodate this, and you could do the same. The only negative with that is, with that, you're going to have to hope and pray that you don't mind keeping that like that And you probably wouldn't if you're building up a big town, but at the same time too, understand that that's pretty expensive, like $50 for something that, you know, maybe you want to have something else, like in addition, like I said, a castle. And now just for the fun of it, I'm going to kind of just speak on what my castle design was going to be, because it's of the same concept of the town, which I want to have a full-size castle within the scope of the gaming paper. So this is just to also give you guys help you guys figure out if, you know, gaming paper is something for you, by also not just the quality and this and that, but the designs that you can make on it, because I really feel that goes a long way too with knowing if it's for you based on the designs that could be made. Now, I'm not going to be able to kind of lay it out here right now, but I will see maybe if I can insert a picture if I have available of the design, but if I don't, I'm sorry about that. So because I have it somewhere, but I may not have it anywhere that I could find easily accessible. But so the idea I had was a full encapsulated or enclosed castle. But what I did was I had some ideas in regards to making sure that, similar to my town that I just showed you, that the dimension of it is going to be just one floor everywhere. So what you have is a layout that is, and I mimic the size of it to the same size as when I first made that town. So I was like, I want to make it around the same size of the town. I don't want to get too big with it, too crazy. And so the design was going to be essentially going all around. You have a big, like rectangular shape. The outer walls are going to only be 1 square wide, and so it's not super thick, but there's a lot going on. And then what's going to happen is on each corner, it's going to expand to somewhere about maybe a 3x3 in size, where it will meet like that. And what that will essentially represent is each corner of like the tower, and it's going to be where, like, say if this is the square, I don't have anything here to hold my place, but if that's the square, would you see right here coming like there, right? This side would be the 1 inch coming this way, and then this would lead away from the 1 inch going that way, so that would be the corner. That's how the design would be for that. And then that surrounds the entire thing. At those same corners will be steps that go up to those. And then outside of that, everything else that's in the center is going to be just ground level. On this left side, you're going to have a big courtyard. And then within the edges of that courtyard, square courtyard, and what you're going to have on the edges of it on the lower end here, a little more out of range of camera, but what will be down here would be a small tavern that's maybe about, I don't know, maybe about 6 squares by 6 squares, something in that range. And then another 6 by 6 next to it of like a stable. That's all on this side of the courtyard. And then you got the courtyard in the middle. Then above this side of the courtyard is a 3 by like 6 of is it 3 by 6 or is it 3 by 3 of a shop? And then another market right next to it. They're not very big. On the side of that is just a wall, because the other entrance of it is, if I'm not mistaken, that is going into the prison. There's a small prison. On the other side of those structures there is the guest room area. Now, the courtyard is going to be in the open. All those things, structures I just said there, go into doorways. And then right here becomes your first big doorway. And so that's when you're out of the courtyard and into the main castle. But the courtyard, which the front gates are coming from that way, are going to essentially have it where when you come in, you have access to those from the courtyard, those common areas of the market, the shop, the tavern, and the stables. If someone wants to bring their horse or whatever the case is, you'll probably have some already horses there from the castle, you know, the people who live at the castle itself. Outside of that, when you first come into that court area, there's going to also be a door going to that side and then coming this way. along the way of the, and like I said, I'm going to find a picture because I know I can find it, that shows the setup. And what you're going to have there is a doorway as well. Around the whole way of the castle, next to that 1-inch wall going all around it, one layer inwards, that's going to be 2 inches or 2 bricks deep, is 2 squares deep, I'm sorry, is all aligned. The whole way around is going to be 2 by 2 rooms, and on that upper side and on the lower side here, you're going to have just 2 rooms that are going to be 2 by 3. But they're all going to be rooms going all around the entire thing, except they're going to stop right at the front gate because the front gate has to have an entrance. So it's going to go all the way around from that way, coming all the way around the entire outer part. You know, I can't move my finger out of the screen of the camera, but you get what I'm saying. At the very edge, going all the way around. That is to accommodate all the staff and all the living people who live here. So on each side, there's going to be something like maybe, I don't know, 2 by this 45 inches total, but I think just that portion is like 38 inches if I remember the math correctly, minus like about a couple of inches on each end, like maybe 3 inches on each end. So essentially you're looking at about like maybe 32 inches divided in half, about somewhere close to 16 rooms per each side, the top and the bottom. And then each side has a couple of rooms as well. So it's like you have this massive amount of rooms. And so the idea of the design is based around the paper. And so it has to make the paper has to make the structure make sense. So then what you have is, after you save, this is that 2-inch area here. So you got the wall right there. I don't know if you guys can see this on camera. Let me just move this up a little bit so you get a sense of what I'm looking at. So if right here is that wall, right here is let me get smarter. Up to here is 2 inches. That's the rooms. This next line right here is a hallway that goes in front of all the rooms, that goes all the way around the entire structure as well. And that hallway, like I said, goes all the way around. And that is like the back means for everyone to kind of walk around every part of the castle. I'd already told you the structure that's over here. And I told you this is pretty much from the stable and the tavern. This, where I said there was a wall here, what you end up having is a little divide hallway that cuts through each side here. So you come into this door, there's a small hallway that's only 1 square wide. And then after that, you come another big door that goes into the throne room / great hall. Above it here on the right, connected with the hall, but it's a doorway. You can only reach it by going through those back hallways. There's a, what is it again? I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. We've got it's not a, what's the term I used? I forget, but I think I gave it a legal term. The court, yes, I called it the court, and it's kind of like the meeting place, you know, where they have like in things like say Game of Thrones, where they all sit down and meet. That's what that room will be, just for the meetings. Next to it is gonna be like the kitchen is like over here, and I think there's another room somewhere inside there too, but I forget what it is. You got that place, you got the kitchen. I think there's something else over there. I forget off the top of my head right now. On this side of the hall is, because the hall is taking up this big middle spot right here. On this side of the hall is a weapons room, artillery room, and then there's a storage room for extra storage, probably for the kitchen, or it could be anything like that. It's just extra storage. Then when you get to the very end of the Great Hall, you can't go through here. There's no wall, but there's another hallway behind that wall that you have to get access to by going around. That little hallway here is the front entrances to this whole section here, along here, which is the royal chambers. And it's divided into 6 rooms, if I'm not mistaken. 5 bedrooms and 1 room that is for the gold of the king, or his money resources, his bank, whatever the case is. And that's in his main area. So if you want to call this almost like the keep, you can, but it's essentially so far away. You can see from its design, it's so far away from the entrance, which is over here. So that way, no one else has access to it. And the only people who have really access is the people who can roam those back hallways, because that's how you get to things. So even if somebody was granted permission to come through the main gate, the main inner gate, come through that like middle hallway door and straight into the big doors of the, because it's only one square thick of, there's the main doorway, then the entrance to the Great Hall, and the inner hallway can go like this, spread sideways. Once you come into the Great Hall, even if they had like an audience for somebody, some kind of townsfolk or whatever the case is, they can't go anywhere in that Great Hall to get to the behind the walls thing, those inner hallways, and those are the only ways to get to the royal chambers. So that is where, like I said, it kind of, the structure lays out in a way that I find is really nice. And then in addition to that, like I said, 2 of those rooms on the side walls are going to be 2 by 3 instead of 2 by 2, and those ones will also be like maybe like premium room locations for certain people. And other than that, you have the guest rooms, which is very big, but the equivalent of the size of like one of the houses that I had made inside the town. But that is for, say, if you have another royalty guest comes, and even then they're staying, that section is still far away from the royal chamber. So even if they were kind of funny or shady, they're far away from the royal chamber. So you see how the structure is laid out. And now the way I just explained, that's pretty much everything here. Oh, and there's also on this side here where I said about the the storage and the weapons area. There's also a chapel room, because you always have that inside a kingdom. Now, this whole layout makes this feel self-contained, where it could be its own. Either it could be an extension of a town, like, you know, you have those setups where you have the castle and then the town is like, you know, down below the hill, which the other town that I just showed you previously to this could be the town to this. Or if a person wanted that design to be a independent, like, castle that has its own kind of town in the castle, to a degree it is that, because like I said, you do have that kind of, this goes back to what I said about scaling. You do have a little market, you do have a little shop, you do have a tavern. All those rooms that are located or surrounding the entire place gives enough room to where this castle in itself is almost like its little own city, where you have so many rooms for all the people who live here and never have to leave the castle for anything. All the people who work here, because all those rooms are to occupy all the people who work at the place and maintain it, the knights, the workers, all that kind of stuff. So if you didn't want to use it to connect with a town, but you wanted it to be its own town, it could almost represent its own little town as well. So that's why I like that design and that idea that, like I said, I'm going to throw a picture of what I had, but the picture that I have, I kind of cut off with the drawing to show all the back rooms, but you can understand all the side rooms mimic that same thing. Other than that, all the rest of the structure is there in the image. So I am going to include that. Yeah, you guys. So if you guys are in the market for gaming paper, you want to make permanent structures, I definitely advise it for the purpose of it's more affordable. If you want to make permanent structures on a vinyl mat, I 100% say if you got the money for it, go for that. That's even better. But for most of the time, you would use the vinyl mats for erasing, and you would use the gaming paper for permanent in terms of a cost benefit way of doing it. Anyway, you guys, as always, like, share, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.